Nikki Moore, author by the sea. I live in beautiful Dorset and I write mostly for HarperCollins. I've got a new book coming out this year called The Charm Bracelet under the pen name Ella Allbright, women's commercial fiction, out in August. Really exciting. But anyway, I'm here to talk to you today about a kind of creative writing topic. So thanks first of all for joining me on the vlog. If you watch my other vlogs, you'll know that it's usually a mixture of kind of things around how to get published, like agents, editors, etc., publishing houses, and kind of some things that authors need to be aware of and think about, and then also kind of some more creative writing things. So this week I wanted to talk about characterisation, so kind of creating believable characters. It kind of sprung from a conversation I had on Facebook, a Facebook friend called Carmen, who's also a writer, and I was basically talking about how there was one particular really good writing day I had last week, in which I wrote, I think, 3 chapters in one day, so probably about 6,000 or 7,000 words, which is quite a high word count. Part of the reason that I can write so quickly is because I plot my books out and I know what's going to happen, and so it kind of tends to flow. But what I was talking about was that, you know, having written those 3 chapters, I was having a really hard time kind of pulling my head out of it because the characters are real to me and I forget that sometimes. And Carmen was sort of saying, well, what do you mean they're not real? And I think that is something that, you know, got me thinking about as an author, as a published writer, that your characters have to be completely real to you. Because if they're not real to you, then how can you convince the reader that these characters are kind of 3-dimensional and people that they want to spend time with? And actually I think that's something really, really important, and I've definitely noticed for me as a reader, and I did a vlog around, you know, how reading is so important to learning the craft of writing, learning what it is that, you know, readers want. And as a reader, I know that, you know, there can be a great plot to a book, but if I'm reading and I can't connect with the characters, if I don't believe them in terms of, you know, maybe their actions and their motives don't match up, or if I don't like them maybe, if I don't believe in what they're doing and trying to achieve, then that can actually, you know, really turn me off the story. And I'm not someone who nowadays, if I'm not enjoying a book, would, you know, I just read to the end anyway. I don't. I used to do that. And then I think I just had a few disappointing reads where I wasn't enjoying it. I was ploughing through the book. It was feeling, you know, painful rather than entertaining. And I would read right to the end of the book. And at the end I felt kind of cheated, especially if I wasn't a satisfying ending. So, you know, nowadays, if I'm really not enjoying a book, then I would just stop reading it. And it might be that I come back to it at some point in time in the future. But right then, I'm just not going to give my time and energy to something I'm not connecting with. And it's the characters that are so important. So I know that some authors, they start off with plot, and they have this, you know, high concept, and then they find the characters to kind of populate that world. Other writers, I think Stephen King talks about, you know, it's character first and plot second. Whichever way around you do it, you've got to have these believable characters, so they have to be 3-dimensional. And by that I mean that you need to know them. The reader needs to be able to kind of get into their skin, or, you know, step into their shoes and walk around in them. And as I said, they need to be able to connect with that character. So as an author, you have a responsibility to build these believable characters and get to know them. When I write characters, I have to really be invested in them to have a good time when I'm writing. I really believe that if you're not having a good time as an author when you're writing, then the reader picks up on that. You know, you have to feel passionate about the story that you're telling, and that comes from the characters. So the question is, how do you make these characters believable? How do you make them 3-dimensional? So the way that I do it is I get to know them inside and out. And maybe not every single thing is going to translate onto the page. You know, I'm not going to end up telling the reader every single thing, you know, about this character. Because, you know, you might end up actually with, you know, it's too much, it's too overwhelming, and, you know, you're telling them irrelevant things that actually they don't need to know about. But I think that as an author you should know them inside and out, and the reason that's important, even if you're not going to include all those details in the book, is that if you know your characters in that way, then you make sure that everything they say, everything they think and everything they do is authentic to the person that they are. So the way that I do this is it's a kind of it's a combination of things, a cross between a very formalised approach of character bios, which I'll talk about in a moment, and a more informal approach of just, you know, thinking through what would they do. So the formal approach in terms of character bios, there are a few different tools that you can use online, but it's basically I have a spreadsheet, or I put it up, you know, I did a vlog a few weeks ago. I showed how on my wall I've got poster paper, I've got post-it notes, and you know, there are different coloured notes for different things, like different coloured notes for different things that are going to happen, but then I have notes about my characters, I have notes about songs that are going to be either in the book or that I'm going to listen to or that are going to be referenced. But where I normally start off is a spreadsheet, which sounds really geeky, and shocker, I am a little bit of a geek. So, but what I do is I build a bio, so a biography. So that's everything from, you know, it starts with a name, and I think that name is really, really important. You know, does the name suit them? Is it kind of on target for the year that they were born? You know, was it a popular name and an unpopular name? What kind of what will readers infer from the character's name? So it's their name, and then it's their date of birth, it's the month they're born. You know, I kind of look at the star signs and what their birthstones are. It's their occupation, it's their age, it's where they grew up, it's the schools they went to. It is, you know, who their friends, who are their family, what kind of, I almost build a family tree sometimes. It's what are their likes and dislikes, what are they passionate about, and you know, what do they really, really hate. Music, you know, films, food, every kind of detail that makes up someone's personality and who they are. You know, what are their personal beliefs, what are their values, that all goes into my bio, and from there I start to build a really, really clear picture of the character. And I extend that then into kind of appearances. You know, what do they look like? What's their eye colour and their hair colour? What do they wear? You know, what's their style? Or maybe they've got a complete lack of style. You know, have they got any quirks in terms of, you know, maybe that they're the things that they like to wear? You know, jewellery is quite a big thing for me as well, as, you know, jewellery, glasses, that kind of thing, accessories. So that's the formal bit. You know, I build this character bio, and I usually do it for the two main characters only, or you know, if there are three. In the new book that I'm writing, there are kind of more like three main characters. There's a bit of a love triangle, although one of them is off page quite a lot, and there is a supporting cast, and I know the supporting cast well enough that I can write about them, but I don't have to live in them and, you know, wear their skin, as it were, in the way that I do my main characters, because it's my main characters that, you know, the story is kind of, it's spoken through. And then I have a kind of more informal way, so that is the kind of what would you do game, and those are the times where I'm doing things like maybe I'm in a shower, or I'm walking the beagle puppy, or I'm you know, maybe doing housework. And I'm just thinking about the character, and I'm just thinking, oh, if this was the situation, what would this character do? And that kind of, it helps me to get to know them a bit more. And I also try to kind of almost, it's hard to describe, but I'm kind of thinking in the character's voice. I'm thinking up pieces of dialogue, and I'm, you know, having that kind of tug of war in my head in terms of if these two characters were talking about this subject, you know, what would they be saying and what would they not be saying? And I was writing a piece of dialogue the other day between Will and Izzy, who are the characters in my book that I'm writing at the moment. I'm coming up to halfway through that book, and there was something that Izzy said, and I just thought, actually no, she wouldn't say that, and the scene wouldn't go this way. So I had to delete it's probably only about 200 words, but it was that kind of like, oh, I'm losing word count. But I had to delete it and kind of rewrite that bit of dialogue because it didn't feel true to the kind of person that Izzy is. So I would say, you know, find what works for you, but you do need to make these people kind of leap off the page, and you need to make them people that the reader wants to engage with and connect with. And you know, it's about spending time with them. You know, you'd only want to spend time with someone that you genuinely like, or you are intrigued by, you know, for some reason, you know, they're an interesting person. So an example, there was a book I read by Lucy V. Hay recently called Never Have I Ever. It's set in Ilfracombe in Devon, and she's got a main character who, when I actually, I contacted Lucy and said I really enjoyed this book and actually I like the main character, but actually I didn't like her. There was something fundamentally unlikable about her, but it was in the best possible way. And it was obviously what Lucy was kind of aiming for. So you can have characters that you might not like them as in you would want to spend time with them if you knew them as a friend, for instance. But there was something about her voice and the way she told her story, and she was intriguing. There were quite a few layers to her. So, you know, your main character can be unlikable as well, but there has to be something interesting about them, and you need to kind of believe in the mission, or, you know, what it is they're trying to achieve. In terms of likeable characters, you know, I've just read Danny Atkins has written, you know, beautiful love stories, but A Million Dreams, and there are two female lead characters in it with quite distinct voices, and they're both likeable, and you end up liking them equally, and you both want them to get what they want, but they can't because they're in this kind of tug of war. No spoilers here, but Danny's got a beautiful writing voice, and she knows how to write believable characters because she really digs deep into their motivations and their desires. So check both those books out and read it, and maybe you'll see what I mean and get some tips. I hope that's been interesting for you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for the continued support. Please check me out on Twitter, get in touch, and have a great week, and take care of yourselves. Bye.